live on YouTube,
Yeah.
and bam, we're live. We're live on 2
Yeah.
platforms. Woo.
About to be shared too. So we can get
Mm-hmm.
the word out to more people. You know.
Gotta be
Um,
shared. Gotta
just
let
got a
people
sick,
know.
just got a great notification. My favorite notification to receive on a Friday is
Mm-hmm.
that we're live.
Yeah.
It's one of my all-time favorite things.
It's the best notification, man. It
I
is. It
know.
really is.
All
You
right,
gotta,
right.
let people know though at the same
God,
time.
this automated closed captioning is just nuts. It even CC'd correctly. How? I don't know.
Yeah,
All right.
man. Power of AI. It can understand what we're saying. It's pretty crazy.
I know, man. It's gonna take over the world next, man.
It's
You
gonna take
already
it
know.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Darian on that notification gang, what's going on, man?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can I share this, bro? Because I literally just found out right before we went live. I'm super
Yeah,
stoked.
man. Go ahead.
Okay, so if you guys remember the band Saving Abel, which if you don't, it's okay. Um, they haven't been relevant for a decade, so that's all right. But it's for other reasons. It's for several reasons actually. They they had that debut album that had Addicted, right? So like I'm so addicted to all the things you do, right? That song, as we know, everybody knows that song. That album went like multi-platinum. I was reading the other day, and
Mm-hmm.
then things after that kind of fell off because they didn't have record label backing as much, and then the singer left and all this stuff. So anyway, singer's now back in the band. They're going on tour again, coming to Wichita, and with some help, with some good opportunities. My band, No Signal, is now getting to open for them. Coming in June 15th. Saving Abel will be in Wichita. So, um, you know what? Actually, I can do this because I have the power of technology. I'm going to post a ticket link right here. It's not been officially announced yet. It will be, but um, I'm gonna post the ticket link in the comments if you want to check it out. If you're familiar with that band, if you're familiar with my band, you know we've gone through some transitions on my side of things, um, my band's side of things. Oh well,
Mm-hmm.
wait, here it is. I was like, you telling me they aren't available? Um, all right, here we go. Yeah, it's Ticketmaster. Not bad either. Tickets are $20 each, man.
No, that's not bad at all, man.
No, $20 in a classic style theater. It's hosted at Temple Live. Um, I'm gonna type here in case people.
Mm.
John's band, No Signal, opening for multi-platinum. I feel like I'm writing a post. Multi-platinum selling rock band, Saving Abel. Uh, Tickets at the link.
At the
Thank you.
link. At the
It's
link.
a gross looking link, but whatever. It's what I have.
It's all good, bro. It's all good. As long as it works, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I
Ooh,
know.
that is gross.
Look at that nasty link, man.
It is a monster, man.
There has to be a better way. Uh, anyway, we'll come back to that. So,
Mm-hmm.
for those who don't know, this is taking place at Temple Live. Okay, Temple Live. Yeah, I'm not leaving that up.
Yep. Takes up the whole screen, man.
Yeah, that does not look nice. Okay, Temple Live is kind of a company that's like the House of Blues, right? They are buying up locations across the country. Now, the House of Blues is a little different because they built their own infrastructure, right? But Temple Live has moved into oftentimes a lot of classic theaters. That here being the Scottish Rite Center in downtown Wichita, which is over 100 years old. It's got a lot of history in there.
Wow.
So essentially, we're going to be playing this classic theater. So The full lineup is to be announced. It has not been officially announced. This is a podcast exclusive. But yeah, you can find it at the link here if you want to buy tickets. It's only $20. I guarantee you it'll be a good time, with or without our band. I would be going even if we weren't playing. The band's really Saving Abel's a good rock band, so if you're a fan of that kind of stuff, check it out. Like I said, only $20. But man, I'm just so excited to be playing there, dude. I just found out right before we went live, so I still have the shock factor.
Still fresh, man. Still fresh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah. No, yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, it really is so cool that we're getting to do that. So, I don't know. I all week have been working on the band's debut EP. All I have left to do is, I may have to do some augmented percussion, just like shaker stuff, whatever. But one guitar solo left, vocals, and we're done. So, it's not that simple. There's a lot of work that goes into that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
I am about, at most, probably 1 week away from being done with this whole project, and it will. I'm impressed with it. So share it with everybody. It really has come together, and my good friend Trip Waters, he's in the band, a band in Kansas with me. He's gonna be holding down the drums for this one, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. So, yeah, that's kind of the permanent lineup moving forward is he and I, and we'll be doing that. We have, I'm getting to play on guitar the national anthem at the Wichita Wind Surge game, which longtime viewers of the Catch a Podcast know the story behind that team name and everything. Getting to do that, and that's July 8th. 2 weeks after that, we're having an album release show at the Brickyard, which is the best local venue here in town for local music. You know what I'm saying? And so what an opportunity that is. So that combined with this opportunity to open for Saving Abel, man, I cannot. It's wild. It's so great. So everything's coming into place. I was just really excited. I had to share that with people.
Yeah. Wow, man, that's awesome.
Yeah. So let's see. Okay, I'm gonna think here. Where do we want to go? So, as you know, right? Every week, the Catch Up Podcast is possible thanks to viewers like you. Thank you. I have to complete the PBS thing.
You do.
Yeah. So what I mean by that is every week we do a topic submitted by someone, a viewer, listener, etc. So please, as you watch, as you listen, leave us your thoughts in a direct message in the comments section, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook. We're live streaming on both right now. So leave your comments there. And what's been on your mind? What's been trending in your world? What's been, taking your focus? You know what I'm saying? It literally can be anything. I mean, what have we talked about the past couple of weeks? Taking care of the baby boomer generation as they get older, right? They're going to outnumber. I looked it up statistically. They're going to outnumber Gen Z. And I don't think they outnumber us.
No, right? We're just slightly bigger than them.
We are.
Just slightly.
But that's because their reproductive rates were less than the generation that gave birth to them. Our reproductive rates, millennials have not been reproducing, man, like at all.
Yeah, man. We don't have any of that.
We don't want no kids. Like
we're a little slower on the take, man.
Yeah, for sure on that. But regardless, they are going to outnumber Gen Z, the Zoomer generation, you might say. So, it will. We talked about that. We talked about, does anyone volunteer or donate their time with pure intention? So literally, there is no topic that's off limits. whatever has been on your heart, on your mind. Sound like we're at church right now. The past week, let us know in the comments, and we'll be featured on an upcoming episode of the Catch Up Podcast. This week, we're doing one with friend of the show, Daniel Garrett. Really excited for this. So it's a continuation of something we talked about a few weeks back. The invasion of Ukraine, right? Mm-hmm. So, tensions, as we all know, we hear about it all the time. They continue to be high, but you see a lot more of, will there be chemical weapons used by Russia? Has there already been chemical weapons used? Will there be tactical nuclear devices used? These are all things that are being discussed. And really, Daniel's question was, can our society handle another quote unquote disaster? Now, how I took this was mentally, emotionally, we're all beaten down from the pandemic, right? No matter what your stance from it is, and no matter whether you admit it or not, I can see it in everyone. In fact, I remember I started watching Netflix's Drive to Survive, right? And they were following people right before the pandemic started. And then they followed them after. Their demeanors were completely different, man. Not even close to the same, Same people, different attitudes. And so with that, should this escalate into an invasion into a NATO country or, some break of a United Nations agreement, those type of things, is our society prepared for the emotional and mental toll that could bring? It's a fair question, but I think we're already being tested on that right now. So I think it's a great one. I think we should go ahead and jump into it.
Yeah, I think so too, bro.
Okay, I'm going to start recording here. Guys, recording. We're rolling. Very good, very good. Hello, Tina. How's it going?
Tina?
Good to see you.
Jumping on the live stream.
Yeah. All right, we're rolling here. Yeah, definitely praying for you this time. At this time is what I mean to say. Okay. Let's see here. All right, we're good to go. Okay, I'm gonna start us talking here. 3, 2, 1. This week, man, we got another really good topic submitted by a friend of the show, Daniel Garrett, right? So this week we want to talk about the invasion in Ukraine. You hear a lot more the debate, the concern over whether this could escalate into a World War III. But even if it doesn't, the use of chemical weapons, the use of maybe tactical nuclear devices, right? Things like that. What does that mean for a society that's already been hit really hard by the pandemic? And really, it's a global society. How I took this from Daniel's submission is, we're all really beaten down. We've all had to deal with our own struggles caused by the pandemic. And I truly believe that no matter where you stand on the pandemic, the pandemic, that, it's taken its toll on everybody to some degree, and so, I think that this will be a great discussion to have. Are we in a position where, should this escalate, should this turn into something more, can we handle it? The highlight has been ever growing on mental health, and so it does, I think, bring up questions in people's mind. How are we going to cope with something that could become a World War III, could require a draft? These are all worst case scenarios. 100%. But yeah, I think this will be something that, regardless, will be a good discussion. So before we get into that, I want to remind people, let us know what's been going on in your world, what's been trending in your neck of the woods, right? No matter what the topic is, It can be anything. But if it's been on your mind or it's had you talking all week, let us know in the comments section or slide us a DM. We're live on Facebook right now. We're live on YouTube, live streaming, and that allows you to jump in on the discussion with us in real time and have a conversation with us as we discuss these trending topics. And if you submit your topic, it will be featured on an upcoming episode of the Catch Up Podcast. So, yeah, man, this is going to be a good one. Do you have any initial thoughts before we jump into it?
No. I think it's just going to be a really good topic in general. I think it's going to. I have some really good thoughts about it. So yeah, I'm ready for us to get into it, man.
Well, let's not hold the reins back anymore, man. Let's just go ahead and giddy up right into it. So stupid.
Grab those reins, man.
Yeah, let's take our horse down. Let's just take our horse down to Old Town Road, man. Let's go ahead and do it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I say, we've gotten enough of the chitty chat out of the way. I say we just go ahead and slap right in. So, okay. 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everybody? I'm John.
And I'm Dennison.
And this is the Catch Up. All right. Nailed it.
Oh, man.
Perfect cadence, perfect timing. Per usual. When you hear the audio version, you'll understand what I'm talking about. This game's on halftime. I'm going to close this. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Before we go ahead and get into our topic today, I want to remind people the best ways to support us if you want to go beyond just listening to the episode. The easiest way and the cheapest way is to give us a rating and a review. No matter where you're listening, no matter where you're watching. If you're watching over on YouTube, smash the subscribe button too. Go ahead and do that for us. But no matter where you're listening, there is some level of rating and reviewing. Even if it's just a thumbs up button, that tells the algorithm every time that you do that people are reacting to this show, reacting to this podcast, and it helps us continue to grow. And that is a really good opportunity for us to connect with more people, build this discussion that we get to have each and every week. And really just, like I said, build this community, which is a really cool thing that we've been doing over time. We do live stream every Friday night, and the audio versions of the episodes go live every Monday morning. And the live streams really allow us to discuss with everyone in real time what we're talking about that week. But leave us a rating and review. Let us know how we're doing, even if it's bad, but hopefully it's good. And that'll help us continue to grow and learn what you like and what you don't like. If you want to go and give it to us monetarily, go to signalrocks.com. There's a drop-down menu there for the Catch Up Podcast, or just hit the link wherever you're listening. NoSignalRocks.com/the-catch-up-podcast. You can find all of our audio episodes, all of our videos, and all of our merch and apparel all in one place. It's a really cool place to go and join the community even more so. We have hats. Hoodies aren't going to be quite necessary anymore, but we got t-shirts for the warming people, for the areas where it's getting warm, right? And phone cases and mugs. It's always mug season, man. I got
always.
So,
always mug season, man.
It's mug season year round, my guy. So I just be sipping on that coffee all day, every day. But yeah, so it's a really cool place. If you want to support us monetarily, you get something out of it, and of course we get a little scratch as well. I'm in way too goofy of a mood for this. Yeah, and then like I mentioned earlier, the other best way is to follow us on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. We go live every Friday night. And this is a really great way to connect with us in real time as we record the episode for everyone else to listen to. So, man, with that said, why don't we go ahead and jump into this topic? We kind of laid the groundwork already, but how do you feel? I think what I want to ask about first is, what are your thoughts on the Ukraine invasion as it stands right now?
Um, I kind of have some of the same feelings that I did, when we talked about this last time, but I feel that it's still kind of shocking to me. It's just been crazy and just really surprising, I guess, because I feel like we've gotten to a point, um, or at least in my mind, at least, right, especially during the pandemic, is just that like all my mind could really take and be used to was just like crap. All right, COVID. What do we do about that? How does that feel? Or how am I going to deal with that? How am I going to deal with stuff being shut down? How am I going to deal with loss of resources? And then when the invasion of Ukraine happened, it was just even I don't know. It was just like an overload of just extra stuff. Not saying that it was an extra thing, but it was just that it was such a surprise to me, and it's still a surprise that like we are I guess it's the privilege in some ways of like our generation of like, and this is probably just my thought process on it, but it's like a war that is very different, I guess, than a lot of the wars that we've had before, because it's not just, boots on the ground, but it's also like cyber warfare that they're dealing with. And um, I would say kind of where we're getting so much information about it, than I feel like we got with some of the other wars that we've had. So it's kind of affected me a little bit differently. So,
Yeah. Do
but
you
yeah.
have you seen, is what I'm trying to ask, how the cyber warfare threat has only grown since we spoke about it last time? They say that
Hmm.
as Russia continues to struggle, um, you know, that the likelihood of them lashing out in other ways continues to grow.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the scary part, actually, to me.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
it's it's kind of funny because I remember, or at least I don't know, maybe 5, 6 years ago, I would have never have thought like of cyber warfare, and I would have thought of it as kind of like a joke, like, oh man, my computer's hacked. Oh, you know. um,
right.
I guess I never really thought of it as like, cyber warfare is not just like a monetary thing or just someone's personal computer, but it can be like power grids. It can be um, access to internet, which is a really big one in general, to where people can't get any voices out. People can't communicate. There's just so many layers to it that it's kind of even more scary than I would almost say than like just having boots on the ground,
Yeah.
which is so strange to hear, or at least for me, it's so strange to think about.
Well, I think that that perspective has changed for us because we now know two things. We know how interconnected our society is. Everything runs off of a network that's tied to a network. We've also seen a lot of examples of what happens when things get hacked. Facebook gets hacked, Microsoft gets hacked, um, the Pentagon gets hacked, right? We've seen the
Hmm.
impacts of that. And so we know that some of that is to blame for Russian hackers or Chinese hackers. Of course, they say, hey, they aren't affiliated with the government, but what are you going to do? If you are engaged in cyber warfare, you're not going to hire this person, right? You're going
Hmm.
to seek them out. You're not going to officially hire them, I should say, but under the table, hiring them to do what you need. Absolutely, of course.
Yeah.
So we've seen the impacts of this already. Um, yeah, it really is kind of scary. And at least what I took from this report that I had seen the other day, is that it's a lot of organizations like yours and mine that they would likely target, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
Medium to smaller organizations, kind of hurting the economy from the ground up, I guess you could say, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, so yeah, it's interesting. But I don't know, man. I am not really too concerned about that personally yet,
Mm.
but I don't know. You know, you can't, to be honest, it happens all the time. And so there are certain levels of this. I wonder, hey, you know, what um what part of this is being built up for narrative, you know?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Because look, I did a tour at the Wichita Art Museum a couple weeks back. They had an Art Deco display, right? And they had
Mm-hmm.
a World War II um, kind of Rosie the Riveter image. It wasn't quite, but you know, it said the ideal American woman, and she had short hair and like big muscle and all that kind of stuff. I was like, since when
Mm-hmm.
is that the ideal American woman, right? But
Mm-hmm.
they had a narrative that they needed to push because they needed that help for the war machine, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to me that Ukraine is putting up as much of a fight as they are. Um, Unexpectedly so we understand, you know? Now, Russia has not put in the totality of its forces. And in fact, one thing I saw was they were sending people from basically the eastern side of their country. So they, you know, were sending people from the complete opposite side to reserve those that are nearest the Western Front, you know?
Mm.
Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, which it is interesting. So they haven't even committed to more forces. They could pretty easily wipe Ukraine off the map, I would believe, you know, if they wanted to.
Mm.
Now, the fact that they're not, it's almost like they're allowing, you know, again, for their own propaganda machine, for these struggles to be had, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Uh,
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, it's also kind of just kind of going on that same front. You know, it's also interesting to um, see like some of the people from Putin's wartime cabinet, essentially his advisors or and stuff like that, have kind of also um, lately been disappearing from the limelight, which is a little bit interesting as well. So it kind of, it also kind of begs the question of like what's happening or what's next, you know?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So I don't know if you heard about this today, um, but I was watching the practice for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix,
Hmm.
and there was actually a drone strike in an oil field just 20 kilometers, which is 32 miles um, west of this track, right?
Hmm.
So pretty near it, they could see the smoke and flames from the track, and
Wow.
they delayed practice. They decided they're going to go ahead with the race, but I looked it up. Russia has endorsed what, so it was Yemen rebels that did this strike here. Okay,
Hmm.
think about this though. Rebels have access to drones. You know,
Yeah.
this is a look at the overall war machine. We have proxy battles all over the world all the time. That's how
Hmm.
they get their hands on this really incredible technology, and kudos to them for learning it, you know.
Hmm.
Really kudos to them for learning it. But it's incredible to me. This has been going on for about 7 years now. Russia has endorsed them but doesn't directly support them or anything like that.
Hmm.
Um, so unrelated, but these things are happening all over the world, right? And so I think I want to use that to kind of tether it back into what we're talking about, and that is, could the world take anything more traumatic, right? We've gone through this pandemic, and the general consensus is that we're through it, right? Even though it
Mm.
is still literally a pandemic. Um, and don't get me wrong, I'm more relaxed because the positivity rates are so low and they've been staying low. And even where they've reported surges, those surges aren't amounting to even what the normal was probably 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So I am grateful for them. But everyone's been affected by it. I look back on that time in my life now, starting late 2020 is when it really got bad where I live. Um, through the middle of last year, it was a tough time for me. It really
Hmm.
was. Um, and I don't tend to struggle with things like that, but I look around and I see a lot of examples of people that are right. I have personal friends that have um, made decisions in their lives that they normally would not have. Uh, I would bet if it wasn't the stress, the tension, being cooped up caused by this pandemic. So that's where Daniel's question comes from: is how would people handle this? Now, to me, I think it's kind of two separate things. We
Yeah.
actually have a completely different opinion on it, but I want you to give yours real quick. What do you think, man? What do you think
Yeah.
would be the emotional toll
Uh-huh.
of if this thing continued to escalate, right?
Yeah. So, I have two thoughts on it. I would say that I think my first thought is, to be honest, it sounds bad, but I kind of feel like people would just tune it out.
Yeah,
Um, because I look back at the pandemic and use that as a resource of mine, right? In the pandemic, when it was first happened, people, freaked out or whatever like that. We essentially locked down. We tried to be is essentially follow the rules and stuff like that. But as we got farther and farther into the pandemic, even though the numbers were staying the same, people just kind of got to a point of just like not caring or just kind of filtering it out,
yep,
and pretending that was the way that people coped with it, is just like, well, I don't see it, so I don't have to worry about it or whatever like that. And so there's a fear in me that says that people kind of have the same thought process of like, right now it's all fresh and we're all trying to figure out what's going on, and how are we going to support, how are we going to help, and then a little bit later we just get to a point to where we just, you know even if there's like a big shock and awe, we'll get that big blast of shock, I guess, from everybody, but then it'll die down really quickly, and then we'll
sure,
just get back into our lull, essentially, until something happens to, say, either us that it will affect, um that will affect us, or affect how we feel.
sure. I completely agree. That was honestly what I was going to say. We live in an apathetic America, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we appear to be, from best I can tell, more so that way than many other countries are. Just very apathetic toward things like this. Um, and I completely agree with you, man. I really do think that, yeah, there'd be, oh man, there'd be your shares to social media. Oh, this is
Mm-hmm.
terrible, blah blah. But it'd die off. People would move on. We get over it. So
Yeah, part of that 24-hour news cycle, right? It just
24
goes
hour news
away.
cycle. And I also feel like that does just as much harm as it does good,
Yeah,
um, because,
overstimulate.
yeah, I mean, you see it all the time. You end up wanting to tune that out. But what do you think it is? I have a couple thoughts too, but what do you think it is that causes that apathy towards these big things, right? Like, um, I think if 9/11 happened again,
Mm-hmm.
there would not be apathy there because it'd be like a personal attack, you know.
Yeah.
But with things that are indirectly affecting us, like this, what you see people complain about, they complain about the gas prices because that's their money
Yeah.
coming out of their wallet, but they're not complaining about the war that's causing those gas prices, right?
Yep.
So, what do you think it really is that causes this apathy towards really these, you know, culture shifting events,
Mm-hmm.
society shifting events is what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm. I I kind of feel like, because I feel like I think the pandemic exacerbated this feeling, but I feel like we've been slowly kind of moving towards this for a few years now. But I would say that um, I would say it's just that I think a lot of the times that we've been in, and I lost kind of my main train of thought, which is funny, but I would say that the main things that we have gone through have just kind of absorbed that away, right? And
Mhm.
just taken it away. And so we've pushed ourselves in these little boxes to make sure that we don't feel these things. And then at the same time, I think um, you just get into that thought process of out of sight, out of mind, right? If I can't see it, then it doesn't exist, and
Sure.
um, I don't need to do anything to make me feel better, or I not really make me feel better, but I shouldn't do anything to try to fix it or whatever like that. I think unless it's something that truly enrages, I think it's just the stimulation of all of the amazing. It's a it's a double-edged sword, right? The internet gives us access to all of the information that we could ever want and need.
Yeah.
um, but with that comes moderation, that should come, I should really say. um, but we don't do that. I think we're just so used to just absorbing them and absorbing and absorbing, and that uh, it makes us very it just makes us very like lose touch with reality. And then at the same time, with all of that new information, I think we've also become very disillusioned with the entities that govern us, as well as um, like different conflicts that happen around the world. I think that's the other thing. It's just that we
Also
don't.
caused by the internet, by the
Yeah,
way.
exactly. Also caused by the internet. I think we just don't trust a lot of things as well. So it's like, if I don't trust it and it's not fully affecting me right now, then why do I need to think about it, or why do I need to have it in my life, or
Yeah.
you know,
It's
take up brain space?
brain space. Yeah. Okay. So this ties into something that I've been paying attention to. Um, so Nothing More, one of my favorite bands, they just released a new song. First new song in 5 years almost.
Mm,
Um, Held in by the pandemic, of course. They were actually
hmm
supposed to release the whole album early last year, and it's probably better than ever because they had this extra time. But
hmm
um, man, this song is called "Turn It Up," and I was like, "What is this about?" It
hmm
is full speed ahead right from the jump, and
hmm
what it says. I mean, there's some vulgarity in this song, but it's exactly what you're talking about. That's why I relate to it very much. It's basically the turn it up is referencing rage, like turn the rage up.
hmm
I think the very first verse starts off with "All my friends are dead. Uh, they've all been effed by the internet." Okay,
hmm
uh, and then it's like put my head in a microwave, uh, press all the buttons at the same time.
hmm
And it's talking about I think it's symbolically referenced in the instrumentation of this too, but just the cacophony of noise that we're bombarded with all the time, whether it's through social media or the internet or TV or wherever, just constant. Versus they've all been effed by the government. Okay, so that's kind of funny that you mentioned that too.
Mm-hmm.
Some where my headspace has been, but it really is interesting. This seems to be a growing societal thing. I'm not just saying that because of this song, but definitely it seems that more people are starting to realize what the impact of this kind of stuff is. There's no
Yeah.
fear and hatred spreads that's mentioned in this song, through those
Mm-hmm.
mediums, through, we used to talk about it on here, man, the uh, loud minority rather than the silent majority, right?
Mm-hmm.
uh those small groups of people are everywhere, and they're posting, they're making voices heard all the time. So it seems like this hatred is way worse than it is, and that
Mm-hmm.
causes it, or way more popular than it is, and that causes it to spread.
Yeah.
um but things like that. So yeah, this is why I get joy out of news like TikTok. I don't know when they're planning to do this. I'll look it up real fast. But TikTok, I had read, was planning on providing 10-minute videos. Okay. Uh,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah. And that makes me happy because that is, yeah, 10-minute video uploads are coming. Um, even when I barely used TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
but, when they switched to 3 minutes, I was like, doesn't this defeat the purpose of this app? Now
Mm-hmm.
it's going to have 10 minutes. Now, what they have the possibility of doing here is changing the way that videos are shot forever. We like, if this takes off and is as successful as TikTok has been, all
Mm-hmm.
video is going to be shot, all long form video is going to be shot vertically. And years down the line, we're going to be buying vertical televisions, Um,
That'd be interesting. I don't know though. I don't know. I feel like because I think 10-minute videos does make it's cool, right? But I don't know because I feel like that starts getting into like a YouTube territory,
right.
and and I feel like once you get to a longer video format, most people don't want to watch it on like in a um in portrait. I think
Yeah.
most people would want to watch it in because you get more real estate when you watch it in landscape. So I don't know.
100%.
We'll see how that goes though.
I don't disagree with you. Actually, that's where I was going to go with is I'm glad they're making this change because I think it will not be good for them. I think they're going to struggle with that. People don't go to that. Instagram has all but phased out IGTV because
Yeah,
it didn't work for them. People go to YouTube for long form content. It's still the second, or it is the
it's the
biggest search
king,
engine.
man.
Yeah, it's the biggest search engine in the world. Only second is Google. Google owns both. So
Hmm.
nothing will supplant YouTube. I like to see it. I thought I would see that with Snap. Snapchat just does not make sense how it supplies its content and it's still so successful. It was the only one, in addition to TikTok, that had growth in audience last year.
Hmm.
Um, it just blows my mind. But regardless, think about what we just talked about: TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. There's a different main demographic of users on each one. I
Hmm.
I gravitate to Instagram because I think it fits my content the best, but it also is like a place for creatives, you know,
Hmm.
and it doesn't really give you much space to share opinion, unwarranted opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but just that in and of itself, then you have TV, then you have podcasts, which thank you for listening to this podcast. I'm glad that you are, but um, there's just so much noise all the time. So I agree, getting back to what you're saying, apathy. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Um, with that said, that does bring my answer. to I think, yeah, I think our society would not react to this the same way um, as brought on by the pandemic. Is it ideal for timeliness and well-being? No, of course, but there's never a good time for war. There
Yeah.
never is. And think about this: we can sit in our nice apartments, right,
Hmm.
and talk about how taxing a war in another continent could be. Should it expand? Of course. Should it get worse? There is evidence, sidebar, that they are already using chemical weapons. In fact, there was a photo taken of a phosphor bomb. Now, it hasn't been confirmed that that was taken that day, but what a phosphor bomb does is basically provides it blocks infrared,
Hmm.
so there's no surface to air missile defenses that can work. But this was in a civilian neighborhood, and it can burn people. It can make it hard to breathe. You know, it's like if you walked into a cave, um, or a volcano. You know, um, things like that. So, uh, geyser. That's what I was going for. Geyser. Geyser. Um, so anyway, yeah, it's already getting worse, is what I'm saying. I think that Putin, what I was referencing earlier, I don't know if I finished this thought, but is allowing there to be a stalemate in Ukraine so he further action, which would lead to further conquest, which would lead to potentially a battle with NATO, right? Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
my
Which
thing
is the scary
is,
part.
yes, and that is the scary part, because about their mission is, an attack on one NATO nation is attack on all,
Hmm.
and the U.S. is a member of NATO. But
Hmm.
um, yeah,
Which
my
is,
my thing. Oh, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, which is also interesting because it's very similar to how like World War I started, right? Because everybody had their own little alliances, and so one big thing happened, and then uh, everybody just kind of Garrett, essentially pulled out the guns and said, "All right, let's go,"
Yeah,
and stuff. So
World-
it's a little scary.
yeah. Well, and the other thing is World War II and the Cold War mainly is what led to the growth of NATO.
Hmm.
Um, and here we are potentially in another one.
Yeah.
But yeah. So with that said, my opinion is no, it is not even close to the same thing as far as the impact it would have on our mental well-being, you know, um, that whole type of thing. Because here's the thing: the pandemic. Think about where we started off. It doesn't feel nearly as scary now. There's vaccines, there's treatments, there's all sorts of stuff, right?
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, so but at the beginning of it, right, we
Hmm.
had no idea what this virus was capable of, what it would do to us long term. We still really don't know what it's going to
Yeah.
do to us long term. Um, and I almost think, man, this sidebar, I kind of think everybody has quote unquote COVID long hauler syndrome. You know what I
Mm.
mean? But
Hmm.
some people just don't realize it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the
Yeah.
people that say, "Oh, I'm fine getting 5 hours of sleep." Like, no, you're not, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
No,
just,
I mean,
yeah.
or go ahead. Sorry.
No, you just don't realize it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think a lot of people, I think everybody was truly affected by COVID in one way or not, and it has completely changed the way that I believe our brains work. It's already changed a big societal shift, even though there was someone I was in a meeting with who said like COVID's been canceled, but essentially, like even though we feel as though COVID has kind of gone away because we have all these treatments and we have the infection rate isn't it's still bad, but it's not as bad, right? As well as like the death rates aren't as bad as they were and stuff like that. I can still tell that there are mental things that have changed, as well as like how we do things has changed. I feel like it's truly like, I remember, especially when we were in like the thick of, you know 2020, where we were all like, well, I can't wait till we get back to normal, and we were always thinking of like, you know 2019 normal, right?
Yeah,
um which is
which
funny because, or go ahead, sorry.
I do. I know you've mentioned this before, and I don't want to get you off track what you were saying, but I just wanted to add, I do think we can get back to that.
Mm,
I think it will take time, but I do think we can get back to that for sure.
mm.
But yeah,
So,
go ahead.
well, no, I was just gonna say, like, for me, which is funny because for me, I don't think that we will ever get back to 2019 normal. It's because there are just so many other factors that were created during the pandemic that created the new normal that we're in now. And I don't think they're I think there are things, like, there have been so many societal changes and shifts that I don't feel like we'll ever get back to exactly how 2019 was, how we were pre-pandemic.
Sure.
um because of, I mean, we already see it, right, with remote work, right? Remote work wasn't even relatively big in 2019. Most people were like, I'm just fine. It's I'm fine with staying home, or working, going in, driving to the office and working there and stuff like that. And now, even though like the threat of COVID has gone down, uh, there's still a huge push for remote work, not just from employees, but by companies.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big shift, a big change, and stuff like that. Not saying that all these changes are good or bad, but I'm just saying, like, there are certain things that I just feel like we never will go back fully.
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
even going to like car buying, right? I feel like car buying has gotten closer to a point to where people want to circumvent the dealership process. And I mean, we
Right.
had already kind of been moving towards that trend, but I feel like COVID kind of helped speed up that, with like the chip shortage and stuff like that, to where people don't want to go to a dealership and deal with, if there are dealer markups or what have you, or all that good stuff. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. Right.
I don't know. um so I To tie some of this back into what we were talking about before, is just like, um it's interesting to think what, um yeah, another big thing like a full out war would do.
Sure. Now, look, World War III, that's a different story, right? We
Hmm.
start getting America involved and all these countries and threat of a direct attack. I mean, yeah, that's going to be stressful, but I still contend that nothing would be more stressful than not knowing what the situation is with a virus, not having a cure for it, not having treatment for it, seeing people die all over the place. There was a novelty to it for me when it first took place.
Mm.
Um, and I think in the back of my mind, I had always been curious, not morbidly curious, but still, curious. What would that look like in our society?
Hmm.
I know now. I know, and I do not like it. Um, but there was just a lot more. And then for me, uh, this has actually been a benefit of living in the dead center of the country. It's always been the last to get hit by any big waves. Uh,
Hmm.
there's a lot of rural area guarding between um, us and other major metropolitan areas. However, there's also the I-35 corridor, which I do remember, especially in the early days of the pandemic. Surge in Texas, surge in Oklahoma, surge in Kansas, and it was coming
Hmm.
through that travel. And so, when it started to get bad here, I mean, that was where things started to go awry for me,
Hmm.
many others, many others. And so, I just don't think, because that had an impact on the economy. That had an impact on people's jobs. People were getting laid off. People were having to navigate working from home. People
Mm-hmm.
were told not to associate or um, communicate face to face with even their family members, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you see people dying all the time in hospitals. I just really think we need to keep in perspective, because that apathy is so strong. And I want to tie it back into what we were talking about earlier. That apathy is so strong. I think it's easy for us to bypass, forget, ignore what we went through, right? What we all
Yeah.
went through before we became divided, before we let people in power divide us over what the science said, right?
Yeah.
Uh, we were all scared. It was different for everyone, but I was watching Stephen Colbert the other day, and on the second anniversary of uh, COVID becoming a pandemic, he did a kind of a look back thing. It showed him doing an episode from the upstairs area of the Ed Sullivan Theater,
Mm-hmm.
and he was talking about, yeah, scientists are saying this could last as many as 8 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it comes back to him per current day. He was like, that didn't age well, you know. But that's the thing. We all had that perspective at that time. This is what this is going to look like. It's going to be temporary, and then as it
Mm-hmm.
continued to drag on, and as the vaccine got nearer, oh, don't trust the vaccine. That was made way too quick. Well, but I want a vaccine though. I don't want to get sick. Just a lot of stress. So none of that is brought into a war. Now, this is a terrible situation. By no means am I trying to downplay Ukraine or what's going on over there at all. But
Mm-hmm.
I really do think that, and this was the other point I wanted to make earlier, and I got off topic on my end. Um, we can sit over here in our nice apartments and say, oh man, this is so tough. But think about the people that are in Ukraine having to evacuate, right? The
Mm-hmm.
U.S. is taking 100,000 evacuees, you know, but
Mm-hmm.
there's so many more. And I mean, those people are having to leave their homes for
Yeah.
fear of getting killed or becoming a Russian citizen, and just think about that. They're tough. They went through a pandemic too, but they're still doing what is necessary to protect them, protect their family, other people that are staying over there to give to those in need. They're tough. I just think we need to keep it all in perspective. I think that's really, you know, gonna sound old here, but I think that's really what we need in our society is perspective of what struggle truly is, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what struggle truly looks like. Um, and then we probably wouldn't be burdened so much by these things, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, I think perspective means such a. I think perspective is the key to. Um, I always get these mixed up, but empathy, I think it is, instead of sympathy, because I
Right.
think what
Empathy. Yeah.
empathy is, you feel for them, but you don't know how it technically feels, or something like that. And sympathy is you've felt that before. I think that's right, right? Something like
Yeah.
that. Okay. But yeah, no, I think perspective is like the true key to empathy,
Yeah.
because you can understand like how blessed you are, and so it opens you up to be able to say like, wow, I'm in this situation but I'm not in their situation, and I need to remember that I'm blessed just to be in the spot that I am right now, and what can I do to help, or you know that thereof, because you can understand a little bit more of what they might be going through.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I almost feel like yeah, we just need even within ourselves we could grab that perspective, right? I was telling a story about something that was a real struggle for me when I first moved up here, right?
Hmm.
And I was thinking about it as I was telling I was like, man, this sounds so small, right? But it was so big to
Hmm.
me at the time. But looking back on it, man, it was nothing, you know, because I've gone through much harder, much more difficult decisions and struggles since then. And um, it's all about having that perspective, first of all. And the only way you can face that is to live life. So I'm speaking in generalities here, which, as we know, I hate to do. But I think that, we wouldn't be, pandemic was scary, but with these other things, we wouldn't be so burdened by them if we really like think, okay, we're not being invaded. We're not battling anybody. Uh, you know, and on top of that, we're not at threat of that right now, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, it's just interesting. Another thing, I'll throw this out there, a little FYI. So Biden during the campaign had said that if anyone used nuclear weapons, the U.S. would respond in kind. Now NATO nations are telling him to back off of that pledge. Yeah, because they don't want an all-out nuclear war.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, no one would want that. I mean, and I guess that's the other thing, right? Um, I feel like nuclear. It's funny because there was a thought process that came to mind. I think maybe a year or so back that just kind of I started to think about. It made me wonder, when do we get to a point to where nuclear weapons become far less effective? And what I mean by that is they don't get the same point across as something else would.
Like cyber warfare.
Exactly. Like I
Yeah.
feel there had started to become a thought process of, I was like, nowadays, since we're so interconnected with so many devices, right? The internet essentially touches almost everything that we have and what we do. If someone was able to launch a very well targeted attack, I mean, that could cripple our infrastructure to a point to where nukes don't really matter at that point. You've done pretty much the same damage with far less environmental concerns, right?
Absolutely.
Um, Especially since nuclear weapons have um, such a big like human not well, I mean, yes, humanitarian drawback,
Yeah.
but environmental drawback as
Sure.
well. Like there's a full mutual destruction is such a big thing on there, right? Where cyber warfare is less of that, or it
Yeah.
can be less of that because it's far more targeted, it's far more it can be pinpointed, all that other good stuff like that. Where yeah, if it's a nuclear attack, if someone shoots a missile or whatever like that, then um, there are other powers around that will also do the same. And then we all just kind of get into this missile launching contest where we're just throwing missiles everywhere and it becomes a
Right.
problem.
Yeah.
Um, that's why I was so intrigued. I think what was it, years ago. There's a little bit of a tangent going off a little bit, but is when I heard like the advent of like high powered EMP devices, to where essentially, they could just go through and wipe out um, uh, like a whole just city
Oh,
gone
I know. Yeah.
just by and it fries every single electronic device because, unless you have uh, shielding on said device or whatever like that, it can fry essentially anything that uses electricity, which is terrifying, right? And
Yeah.
that was another thing that I thought of is like, okay, so would that classify as something that is stopping nuclear weapons? But anyway, to kind of get off that tangent, I think I think it's really interesting to see kind of like or to really think about like where we are in this whole war, um, and I guess where we could be, where we could go, because I feel
Mhm.
like it's we're so close, and it's scary, but at the same time, it's like that last step is the hardest step.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I was just double checking. I haven't seen a lot of talk about EMP attacks, which is
mm,
interesting. Um, but absolutely, if you want to talk about the impact on society, like we have been on this episode, that would be one to me where people would absolutely struggle with, because this ties into what we were talking about last week, doesn't it? Um, about how tied people are to their technology, right?
mhm,
So we wouldn't be able to do this podcast, or computers wouldn't work, AC wouldn't work, heating wouldn't
mhm,
work. Um, Anything with a chip in it would be fried,
yep,
phones.
yep. It could also
This is,
cause issues with people who have pacemakers.
yes.
Um, any sort of device, electronic device that we have in our bodies that could be helping us stay alive or whatever like that could all be wiped out. And so, the death toll of anything like that could reach a incredibly high number.
Now there is shielding for it,
Yes.
like you were mentioning, but um, I have to imagine that a lot of our infrastructure has that. But man, it there hasn't been a lot of talk about it. But I do think, again, with how tied we are in this society to technology, to our economy, right, and interconnected everything is, I wouldn't be able to work from home. But even
Me
worse,
neither.
I wouldn't be able to supply medical services at the clinic that I work for, right? So, in a lot of ways, there's so many risks that come from an electromagnetic pulse. Again, thankful there hasn't been much talk about that, but that is something that, again, I would agree, man. I think in 2022, a nuclear bomb, or even discussion of nuclear bombs, is really just for show. And it's something that grabs the average person's attention. But I think
Hmm.
really military strategists are probably more concerned about cyber warfare and electromagnetic attacks.
Hmm.
Uh, because even nuclear attacks can be planned for, stopped, right? There are ways to
Yeah.
disarm those missiles mid strike, um, and things like that. So yeah, all in all, I think we're in a good place. I think hopefully, as a society, we're all tougher post pandemic, right? So
Hmm.
I think we're looking good. But I think this was a good discussion. Do you have anything else you want to add on it?
No, no, no. I think this was a great discussion. I think we kind of covered a lot of stuff that was one just on our minds, but I think on a lot of other people's minds as well.
I agree.
Um, and we'll just have to kind of keep up with it and um, go from there.
Yeah, I agree. So thank you, Daniel, for the topic submission. Remember, you can leave your topic anywhere that you're listening, whether it's in a review or direct message us on Facebook. We're live streaming over there and on our YouTube channel. We also are active on our Instagram page. So go to search our podcast title on any of those platforms. You'll find us. You can email
Hmm.
us at ketchupcast@gmail.com. And you can check out our website, nosignalrocks.com. There's a drop down menu. It'll take you to the Ketchup podcast page. All this is linked in the description of this episode, no matter where you're listening to the audio version. And so many ways to connect with us. We want you to jump on the live stream, have these conversations with us in real time, and certainly let us know what your topic suggestions and thoughts are. So, um, yeah, this has been a great one, man. A great Friday night podcast. Last one for the month of March.
Hmm.
But next week is no joke. We'll be going live on April Fools, I believe. So,
Yeah.
um, it'll be a fun time. So, thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you for watching. And we'll catch up with you next week. Heck yeah.